The Gulf Stream could collapse as early as 2025, studies suggest. The collapse will bring catastrophic climate impact, but scientists disagree over this new analysis. Let's have a read of this from The Guardian, guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with an article from The Guardian. And the headline is: The Gulf Streams could collapse as early as 2025, the study suggests. That early? That's in less than 2 years. That's quite a big statement, to say the least. But let's read into it, guys, before we jump to anything. So, the Gulf Stream system could collapse as soon as 2025. A new study suggests the shutting down of the vital ocean currents called the Atlantic Meridional Overturning circulation, Amoc, by scientists, that will bring catastrophic climate impacts. Amoc was already known to be of its weakest in 1,600 years owing to global heating, and researchers spotted warning signs of a tipping point in 2021. The new analysis estimates a timescale for the collapse between 2025 and 2095, with a central estimate of 2050. If global carbon emissions are not reduced, evidence from the past collapse indicate changes of temperatures of 10 degrees in a few decades, although these occurred during ice ages. Other scientists said the assumptions about how a tipping point would play out and uncertainty in the underlying data are too large for a reliable estimate of the timing of the tipping point. But all said the prospects of an Amoc collapse was extremely concerning and should spur rapid cuts in carbon emissions. Amoc carries warm ocean waters northwest towards the pole, where it cools and sinks, driving Atlantic currents. But an influx of fresh water from the accelerating melting of Greenland's ice cap and other sources is increasingly smothering the currents. A collapse of Amoc would have disastrous consequences around the world, severely disrupting the rains that billions of people depend on for food in India, South America and West Africa. It would increase storms and drops in temperatures in Europe and lead to rising sea levels on the eastern coast of North America. It would also further endanger the Amazon rainforest and the Arctic ice sheets. I think we should be very worried, said Professor Peter Diversen at the University of Copenhagen in Denmark, who has led the new study. This would be a very, very large change. The Amoc has not been shut off for 12,000 years. The Amoc collapsed and restarted repeatedly of the cycle of ice ages that occurred from 1,100 to 12,000 years ago. It is one of the climate tipping points, as scientists are most concerned about as the global temperatures continue to rise. Research in 2022 showed 5 dangerous tipping points may have already have passed due to the 1.1 C of global heating to date, including the shutdown of Amoc, the collapse of Greenland's ice cap and the abrupt melting of the carbon-rich permafrost. The new study published by the journal Nature Communications used sea surface temperatures data stretching back to 1870 as a proxy for the change in the stretch of the Amoc currents over time. The researchers then mapped this data to the path seen in systems that are approaching a particular type of a tipping point called the saddle node bifurcation. The data fitted surprisingly well, Diversen said. The researchers were then able to extrapolate the data to estimate when the tipping point was likely to occur. Further statistical analysis provided a measure of the uncertainty in this estimate. The analysis is based on the greenhouse gas emission rising as they have done to date. If emissions do start to fall as intended by the current climate policies, then the world would have more time to try and keep the global temperatures below the Amoc tipping point. The most recent assessment by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that concluded that Amoc would not collapse this century, but Diversen said the models have been used to coerce resolution and are not adept at analysing the non-linear processes involved, which may make them overly conservative. The potential collapse of Amoc is intensely debated by scientists who have previously said it must be avoided at all costs. So this is how it works for those who aren't aware. The Atlantic Meridional overcurrent circulation is weakened and has collapsed in the distant past. So it pushes the warm surface water carrying north, and the idea is that it cools it down. So a weakened Gulf Stream would raise the sea levels on the Atlantic coast of the US from here, which would have devastation here. The cold sanitary deep water carrying south back. Yeah, if you look at that from it, it's we rely quite heavily on it as a planet. Professor Nicholas Bars from the Poldon Institute of Climate Impact Research in Germany revealed the early warning signs of Amoc collapse in 2021. The result of the new study sounds alarming, but if the uncertainties in the heavily oversimplified model of the tipping point and the underlying data are concluded, then it becomes clear these uncertainties are too large to make any reliable estimate of the time of tipping. Professor David Thornley at the University College London, UK, agreed the study have large caveats and unknowns, and said further research was essential. But if the statistics are robust and relevant way to describe how the actual Amoc behaves, this is a very concerning result. Dr. Keely Caesar at the University of Bremen, Germany, said using sea surface temperatures as a proxy danger for the strength of the Amoc currents was a key source of uncertainty. We only have direct observational data of the Amoc since 2004. The explanation of the new analysis was reasonable, according to Professor Tim Letton at the University of Exeter, UK. He said the tipping point could lead to a partial Amoc collapse, for example, only in the Labrador Sea, but that this would still cause major impact. Deverson said he hoped the debate would drive new research. It is always fruitful when you do not exactly agree. Professor Stefan Rosboff at the University of Potsdam, Germany, said there are still large uncertainties where the Amoc tipping point is, but the new study adds to the evidence that it is much closer than we thought. A single study provides limited evidence, but when multiple approaches have led to a similar conclusion, then it must be taken very seriously, especially when we're talking about a risk where we want to rule out with 99% certainty. Now we can't even rule out crossing the tipping point in the next decade or two. Yeah. So, this is scary, guys. The damage could be permanent, at least within our lifetime, if it was to tip. Obviously, it's very big to say that. Obviously, we've covered a lot on climate and how important we as a species need to change it. But if this collapses, if it is predicted to collapse, especially in the next 2 years, less than 2 years they're predicting, I just can't imagine the devastation that it's going to cause around the world, guys. It's going to be absolutely brutal for us all, and world leaders need to take it seriously, guys. So what do you make of this study? Do you think it's realistic? Do you think maybe it's a bit too soon for it to happen? Is the Atlantic Meridional overturning calculation, is it really that close to collapsing? I mean, there has been talk about it before, but what do you guys think? I think, as someone who doesn't really, I don't really have not paid enough attention to this to know this for certain, but I'm not sure. Obviously, I'm not a scientist and I'm just giving my views here, but my view is that we should be concerned for certain. Whether it will collapse in the next few years, I am a little bit skeptical. I'm not going to lie, I do feel a little bit skeptical about that. But we are not slowing down. We're not slowing down. We're not cooling the planet still, which is the other thing that's in the back of my mind. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like, share and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.